So you recognize the guy beside me here as, now bearded Mr. Clarke from Stranger Things, Randy Havens. We can give him a round of applause. A good one here. Thank you for coming to Cornwall.
Yeah, you bet.
I guess I'll kick things off, but you guys, I hope I don't steal any of your questions. But let's just start with an easy one. Maybe it's not easy. Maybe I think it's easy. But take us back to before we talk about getting cast for something like this. When you were on set shooting season 1, did you have any inkling that it would turn into what it has turned into as this cult following?
Not at all. We all knew that we were working on something good, but I just assumed that it would be kind of a cult hit and that it would have like a small but dedicated fan base. I mean, I knew there were people that were going to be fans of the show. I had no idea it was going to blow up the way that it did.
Now I can keep going, but this is your panel, so do you guys, anyone have just put your hand up and we'll get to everybody. If not, I can keep going here because I am also a fan of the show. Go ahead.
When you're part of a show like this, like we're all outsiders, so we can enjoy shows like Halt, and Stranger Things just as a sort of it takes us out of our world and we can binge watch them on the weekends. When you're part of a show like that, can you watch those shows yourself and enjoy them, or is it like watching?
Absolutely. I think it's actually worse for me.
Yeah.
Being a fan of especially Stranger Things, where I read the scripts a year before the show comes out.
And how much of the script? How much are you allowed to know about the wider story?
Everything. I get full scripts, at least in the episodes that I'm in, or if it's something that we read at the table reads or whatever. I'll get the whole thing. They're not worried about me spoiling anything. We've gone through 2 seasons so far. I haven't spoiled anything, so they trust me. So sometimes it's harder for me because as soon as I read the script or as soon as I hear the script being read by the cast, I'm like, I want to see this episode right now. And then I have to wait a whole year to actually see it. So for me, it's a lot about anticipation of from what we read, from what we film, like what they're going to do with that, what it's going to look like when everything is said and done.
So you do sit at home like we all do, following the shows as well?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I binged watched season 1 in one day.
Oh wow.
And I got the season 2 episodes kind of bit by bit. They were sending them out to me before it actually came out. So I was like, I would watch like 2 episodes, but that would be the only 2 episodes they send to me, and I have to wait a few days for the next episodes. And so it was really hard for me because I'm like, no, I want to watch the next episode right now.
And just as sort of an add-on to that question, what other shows do you enjoy? Like what genres do you enjoy in shows that are on right now?
I watch a lot of stuff. I'm watching Counterpart right now with J.K. Simmons, which is a really good sort of kind of alternate universe type thing. Little not similar to Stranger Things, but with the alt universe stuff, it's there are definitely like similarities between the two. So that's my big jam right now.
And you had a question here too?
Yeah, what's it like being on set of the show?
It's the number one. It's the best set I've ever been on. It's very collaborative. The Duffer Brothers are like, they want to do things that everybody's into. So they'll come up to you with questions like, do you like it? Do you not like it? Like what can we change? Stuff like that, where they want to know. They want everybody on set to feel like they're a part of creating the show. And they put their trust in everyone that they work around. They do a great job of working with great people. So the people that head their departments are really good, and they trust the opinions of the people that they work with, and they really want to know the opinions of the people that they work with because they want everybody to bring their best work to the table. And the kids are awesome to work with. They're really talented and super professional. So it's very interesting to work with children who, at least when we're filming and when we're working, are acting like adults basically because they're so professional.
And did Mr. Clarke see a limited by kiss at
I don't think so. Mr. Clarke was in another room, so Mr. Clarke was like taking the tickets, so I don't think he was actually in the gym while they were dancing. Yeah. There's a couple of memes out there that are pretty funny. Yeah, right here.
Which one of the kids are most fun to be around?
Which one are most fun to be around? They're all great to be around. I think probably the funniest one is Gayton. He is a very hilarious guy. It's hard to film with him, especially in the more comedic scenes, without cracking up because he is so funny.
Anybody else?
Yeah. What's up, Neil?
You actually play Dungeons and Dragons?
I do not play Dungeons and Dragons.
What are you doing after?
I'm not playing Dungeons and Dragons with you, Neil.
I tried.
Will we be seeing more of Mr. Clarke in season 3 than we did in season 2?
Maybe. Yeah.
What was like your first impression of kids, Noah?
Yeah, well, so the first time I met them was at the table read for season 1. If you guys don't know what a table read is, it's literally we're all sitting around like a group of tables, and we've all got scripts in front of us, and we just read through the scripts and just read our scenes aloud. And then we'll have a person reading stage directions, sort of like setting the scene for the different stuff that's happening. And so my first impression of them was just, like these kids that I had no idea about. And of course, it was before anybody was famous. I think Winona obviously was the most famous person that was there. And, the rest of us were largely unknown. Yeah, I didn't know them. They were very young. I don't think that I was hesitant at all. And then once we started filming, I was like, oh wow, these kids are super talented. So yeah, I guess my initial impression was just how talented they were. I remember walking by one day and they were on the playground, and I was like, oh yeah, they're kids. They're playing on the playground. I mean, now they're basically adults, so they've grown up so much. Seeing them now, it's just oh my goodness, they are as tall as I am.
When I put my Facebook post up today to let everyone know that Randy had a panel, I tagged you on Facebook, and then I creeped your page, because you guys never do that, right? We never creep pages on Facebook. And one of the things that you had up there, and I think it would be really cool if someone did that to me, but your character, Mr. Clarke, got a pop figurine.
Yeah.
Talk about that day whenever. I don't know how you found out, but maybe you could walk us through the day you found out that you got made into a pop.
I found out, I think before it came out, someone involved in production was like, hey, there's a toy. There's a toy coming. But then they were also like, we can't show it to you because it's top secret until it gets released. So I'm like, wait, so you've seen it and I can't see it? So yeah, I had to wait until everybody else, obviously, and then when it came out, it's amazing. It's not something that I ever thought would happen, that I would get a toy. That's so far beyond my comprehension of anything. I'm just I'm an actor. I never expected to be on such a huge show, and I also never expected to be a part of this fandom that's so crazy and bananas. And so they sent me a few of them, but the day they came out, I went to GameStop, and I saw 2 of them, and I was like, okay, there must only be 2. So I put 2 on the counter, and the guy behind the counter is like, oh no, sorry, you can only buy 1.
He didn't recognize you.
He didn't recognize me. And he was like, for scalpers, we're preventing scalping. And I'm like, okay, but what if I'm this person? What if I am this character? What if I play this character on TV? And he was like, and he goes, oh crap.
Yeah.
And then he was like, there's more over here. So I was like, give me all of them. I'm buying them all because I have a family that will disown me if they don't get one.
You need some cash afterwards.
What's that?
Scalp them afterwards.
He made some, yeah. Then I sold them to my family. Yeah. For an upcharge, for sure.
And we talked about this yesterday. The guy behind the counter, as you were buying your own pop, didn't recognize right away.
Yeah.
And obviously your regular look, I'm assuming this is regular Randy?
Yeah.
Is this, so if regular Randy, it doesn't look like Mr. Clarke, because
Right.
you just have the mustache, you're a little bit more conservative. Do you get recognized often enough when you're in your regular persona out and about?
No, I think there are places that I go to regularly that people have started to recognize me at those places. So like my grocery store, like my Starbucks. Sorry, we don't have Tim Hortons in the States, guys, or else I'd go there. And my movie theater that I go to. The funniest one was like the bag boy at my grocery store. Because I was kind of being a smart ass to the guy behind the counter, like the guy who's checking me out, and the bag boy, I guess, hears my voice and recognizes me for my voice and like looks at me and like gives me like a weird look. And normally I try to like just get away with it. Like I'll go like, oh, I come in here all the time, to try to trick them into not making a scene. And this guy wasn't having it. He was like, oh my God, y'all, it's Mr. Clarke. And I'm like, shut up, stop, don't, just please. Everyone in the store is like turning and looking. He's like, from Stranger Things. I love that show. Yeah, really embarrassing.
You know what? Just tell them it was me. It was me that did that. Anybody else have a question?
Yeah,
How long have you been acting?
I've been acting for 15 years. So it's I was working a long time before I got on a hit TV show. So if acting is something you want to do, it takes a long time sometimes. So
And how many?
yeah, creepy janitor.
Oh,
Do you have
I'm sorry, what's your actual name?
My name's Anna.
Anna has been, I don't know if you guys have
oh
been out
yeah,
on
trust
the
me, I'm well
floor.
aware of creepy janitor.
She is very scary when she's in her cosplay.
Come see it at Escape Manor this summer.
Yeah, Escape Manor. Do you have any advice for anybody who would maybe want to pursue acting as a career?
I think my biggest advice would be to never stop learning, and to remember that it's a process. Because a lot of times, like, the little things can get you down. If you don't get cast in something, or you didn't get the part that you wanted, a lot of times, you get down on yourself about that. And just understand that there are things that are in your control and things that are out of your control. Something that's in your control is how hard you work, how dedicated you are, how much you're constantly pursuing different acting techniques, different acting styles, finding new sort of tools to put in your acting toolkit. And the things you can't control are whether or not you get cast, because they could be like, oh, God, I wish her hair was a different color. And even though that's something that can change, a lot of times they're like, no, I don't see that. I see a person with black hair. And so they're just things that you can't control, and that's one of them. And so to walk away from an audition going, today I got the chance to act. Because when you're in an audition, you're still acting. You might not be getting paid for it, or you might not be getting the stage time in that particular moment, but you still got to get in front of an audience, even if it's just 4 people behind a table, and act. And I'm assuming if you're acting, it's because you love doing it. And any chance that you get to do it and have fun with it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I remember reading somewhere from an interview that the kids like to play pranks, and I'm wondering if you ever fallen victim.
No, absolutely not. They know better than to do that. No, no, they don't prank me. I think pranking is a way for them to get through like the boredom of a day. But yeah, I'm not on set so much that I get pranked. It's usually and also like, it's usually when people are like, somebody's pranked somebody, and then it just becomes like a prank war or whatever. And I don't prank the guys. I'm not super serious, but I am there to work, so I don't spend a lot of time pranking. But they're there like every day, so like at some days they just don't have a lot of stuff to do, so they're going to get into some shenanigans.
I like your character in large part because the way you approach science, the way you help educate the kids about science, makes science cool, makes science approachable, and makes science fun.
Yeah.
there's not that many actors that get a chance to play a role that can have an impact like you would in like STEM.
Sure.
You know, so that's, I don't know, I just thought that was amazing. I want to make sure I brought that up because.
Cool, thank you. And you know, the interesting thing is that I was never a science kid or a math kid. Obviously, I was into drama and the arts. But I understand the importance, obviously, of science. It's, you know, hopefully going to be the thing that keeps us alive and on this earth in some sort of sustainable way. So it's very important in space exploration and all that stuff, which I enjoy. But I'm just not. My brain doesn't work in the scientific way. So I'm glad that I'm able to you know, bring that and like bring some light to that and have like a positive portrayal of a teacher. Because I do think it's important. And so what I did as an actor to like prepare to play a science teacher is make sure I was pronouncing everything the right way. Do a little bit of research to understand like the basic tenets of the thing that I'm talking about, because, you know, if I'm just saying words, that's just going to come across. So I do, you know, like in a rough way understand what I'm saying, just not in like I couldn't break it down for you mathematically, like parallel universes or the multiple universe theory or whatever, or the mini universe theory. So what I did to prepare as an actor, on top of like learning about the subject and making sure that I understood what I was saying, was why Mr. Clarke would be so accommodating to the kids. And the thing that I came up with was that he was similar to them when he was in school, and maybe he was like really nerdy and he got picked on. And so because of that, he's like, well, let's make sure that these kids feel like they have a place in this school where they can be understood and accepted and appreciated, and curious, and to have a space where they can learn about the things that they want to learn about.
And not talked down to.
And not talked down to, yeah. One of the big things that I pulled from the Duffer Brothers, who created the show, is that they talk to the kids like adults. Like I said, it's a very collaborative environment, so they don't talk down to the kids. They don't ever tell the kids what to do. They talk to the kids, and they, you know, figure out like, oh, okay, is this better for you if you do it this way, or is it better for you if you do it this way? And, you know, they try new things, and it makes for a very exciting and creative environment when you have people that work with you that way.
Yesterday's panel, we had Jason Warner-Smith here.
Yeah.
And he told us that he actually auditioned for Sean Astin's role.
Yeah.
As Winona Ryder's boyfriend. And did you know, for you, when you were auditioning, were you specifically knowing that Mr. Clarke was a character you were chasing? Or like,
No.
how much knowledge
No,
did you
I
know
didn't.
auditioning for the role?
I auditioned for a few different characters to begin with. And what you do at the beginning of an audition process is you tape it yourself. You tape your own audition reading with another actor, and they'll be off camera reading the other parts, and you'll just read the parts for your character. So I auditioned for the Connie Frazier, who was the blonde assassin lady in season 1. She's the lady who kills Benny. And I auditioned for that character because they didn't know if they wanted to be a man or a woman. I auditioned for Mr. Clarke. I auditioned for the vice principal of the school, and maybe like an agent, like one of the other agents in the show. So, and just sent those tapes in, and eventually got a call back for the vice principal role, who's played by a guy named Tony Vaughn, who's an older African-American actor. And when I got called back for that role, I walked into the room, and the Duffer Brothers were there, and I had never met them before. I didn't know who they were, honestly. Like, they had, you know, they've been making movies for a long time, but not a lot of people had seen their work. So they were there, and Carmen Cuba was there, who's the casting director for the show. And as soon as I walk in the door, Carmen goes, "What do we think of him for this other part?" if we decide to go a different way with that part. So what that means is 3 things. 1, they don't want me for this part that I'm auditioning for. 2, they probably don't want me for this other part that they're auditioning me for. But 3, that they want to see me read something else. So the third one is a positive. The first 2 are like, uh-oh. But when I get that as an actor, I go, okay, I can do whatever I want, because they don't see me for this. Like when I walked into the room, they don't see me as being this character. So I can just do whatever I want, and I don't have to worry about whether I'm doing what they want, because they don't want me. So I can just do what I want and see if they like it. And if they like what I want, then they're going to find a place for me. So I read that scene, and then they're like, okay, here's this other character. I don't even remember his name at this point. Maybe like Henry? But he was going to be Jonathan's boss at the movie theater. So I go out and I read that script. It's 7 or 8 pages. So I'm just trying to get the gist of what this character's about. Not really trying to learn the lines, because there's no way that I'm going to have everything down in that short amount of time. But just looking at the part and going like, okay, what's this guy's deal? What's my take on what this character's all about? And so I go and I look over that, and then I come back in and I read that part. And then I got cast in that part. Now I'm sure you guys are going like, I don't remember Jonathan's boss. Well, it's because they cut the character. And they did that about 1 or 2 weeks after that. This is during what's called pre-production, which is where they're just sort of like planning out their season on paper and going like, what do we need to shoot, and then what can we cut? So at some point they go, oh, we can cut this character entirely, who was going to be a recurring character throughout the first season. They're like, we can go ahead and just cut this character entirely. So that's what they did. So I got hired, I got fired, and so I did not have a job on the show. And then just a little while later, just before the table read for the first season, they were like, actually, they want you to read this part at the table read, and they want to see if maybe they want to cast you in this part of Mr. Clarke. So I got to read 6 of the first 8 episodes before we even started shooting. And then I went into the table read, and it was there, like, when I met the Duffer Brothers again, that they were like, we're excited for you to play this part. And I was like, oh, I guess I'm in the show now. So sometimes you'll get hired, fired, and hired again on the same project before you even start filming, and it ended up being a really cool thing.
Questions?
Yeah.
Do you have any flexibility in terms of the dialogue or suggestions about your character, or do you have to stick pretty close to what they give you?
I definitely want to stick to the script, but if it's not working, I remember in season 1, there's a scene, I think it was my first day on set, where they were like, actually, this camera move is going to take about 15 more seconds. Randy, can you just add 15 seconds of dialogue? And I'm like, great, yeah. And I go off and I just like write out some stuff, and it's nothing too complicated. It's just like Mr. Clarke sort of droning on as the kids are leaving the classroom, and he's telling them, to study for their quiz or whatever. And so I just padded out what they had already written and just like added a couple of extra lines so that it took a little bit longer, and then went to them and went like, do you like this? And they're like, that's perfect. That's exactly what we needed for this.
So is pretty much everything you filmed end up in the episodes, or is there things about Mr. Clarke that were revealed that are on the cutting room floor?
I don't think they cut anything.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah, I think they used everything they shot. Yeah, I can't think of anything they got.
What's your relationship with Andy's mustaches now, since you've done 2 characters, Halt gets fired? Love or hate? Is it a real mustache?
Yeah, no, absolutely, it's real. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. I lived with that mustache for a year. Yeah, I got some strange looks.
Okay, so kind of a hate relationship.
It's not a hate relationship, because once I had it for a year, it was like part of me. Yeah, you'll get like waiters, like hipster waiters at like restaurants who are like, man, cool mustache. And then now, of course, I'm sure if I went out with the mustache, like that I would get recognized a lot more. So yeah, that's something to look forward to. Yes.
Earlier you mentioned you like to watch the show.
Yeah.
You get the script in advance.
Did you just like move to a different seat and think I wouldn't recognize it was you,
No,
Neil?
no. I didn't want to get in the way of the camera.
Oh, okay.
But I could put a hat on too for the next question.
Great. Yep.
You said you like to watch the show. You said you get the script in advance, but then you just told us a story about how a character just got completely removed.
Yeah.
So do you ever watch the show and then go, oh, geez, I didn't know they had done that because you have been on that part of the scene, or do you ever get surprised watching the show anymore?
Yeah, I didn't know Bob was gonna. Is everybody caught up?
Yeah.
Okay, so because I'm about to do a spoiler from season two.
Season 2.
From season 2, which has already aired. I did not know Bob was gonna die.
Yeah, that was a surprise.
That was a big surprise. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you still get surprised even though you're part of it.
Yeah, there are some episodes that I don't read, and that's really fun. And I actually, like, when I was reading the script for episode 9 of last season, I was like, oh, there's stuff I don't want to know. So I was like, let me just do a search for Mr. Clarke, and let me just make sure that I know all of Mr. Clarke's stuff, and then so that I get to be surprised, because I didn't want. I wanted to watch the last episode like with as much with no knowledge of it, but I had to have some knowledge just to figure out what was going on with my character. But yeah, it was more of a skimming thing, finding Mr. Clarke and studying that. What's that?
They don't film alternate endings or anything like that?
They might film alternate endings, but they're not. They usually won't have alternate scenes in the script. If they do an alternate scene, that's something that they'll change on the day.
Right here.
Yeah.
What's your favorite scene from the show? Like out of both seasons?
I think in season 1, when I'm explaining the flea and the acrobat analogy, like going into the upside down, but like, scientifically, with the paper plate, that's my favorite. That was my favorite thing to film. But I think there's going to be something coming up that's actually going to be my new favorite scene. So, but we'll have to wait till 2019 to find out what that is. Yeah.
What influenced you to become an actor?
It's the only thing that I always wanted to come back to. I never get sick of it. It might be hard sometimes, and I might get like down on myself about it sometimes. But it's never something that I'm like, oh, I have to go make a movie today. It's like even when I have to wake up at like 5 a.m. and work till midnight, I may get tired on that set, but when it comes time to film, like I am, just as excited.
But did you always wanted to become an actor?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You said you had done acting for 15 years. What did you do prior to that? And what made you choose that?
What did I do prior to acting? I mean, nothing. I was a young person. I studied film in school, but there's just something so technical about that I mean, there's definitely technical stuff about acting as well, but I just don't think in the types of terms that I think would make me a good person behind the camera. So my friends and I made short films, and we would always swap out, okay, you're behind the camera on this one, and we'll do the acting, or vice versa. And after making stupid short movies together for a couple of years, we all realized what we wanted to do. So I had my friend that wanted to be the director, I had my friend that wanted to be the editor, I had we had the guys that wanted to be the writers, and I definitely always wanted to be in front of the camera. So yeah, it was doing that I was like, oh, okay, no, acting is actually the thing that I want to do. And so I got into doing improv comedy and sketch comedy, and moved from that into doing theatrical plays, and from that into commercials, and then from commercials into TV and film. Yeah.
You talked about improv, and I'd like to know how you got into that episode of Archer.
I actually-
comedy background, so maybe you knew somebody, or
I do. I know a lot of the people that the creators of that show,
Yeah.
and have worked with them for years, just on projects that never saw the light of day. So yeah, it just happened to be like this happy coincidence that that they thought of me for this character, which is pretty far outside of the normal characters that I would play. So it's fun to play a bad guy.
Intellectual clown.
Yeah, very intellectual
Yeah,
and
crazy and intellectual, like the
who
Junkies.
probably needs anger management as well. Yeah.
So the kids riding on the bike and stuff, was that, and like the whole set in general, was that all on a set, or was?
No, most of the stuff we film's on location. Some stuff is set, so like obviously like a lot of the upside down stuff and like the laboratory stuff and yeah, I think a lot of the upside down stuff is going to be at a studio space. But all my stuff was on location, so we filmed at an actual like unused, like an old high school. And my house is, like an actual house. And the streets and stuff are actual like streets that people live on. Yeah.
You've already talked about the audition that you did for Stranger Things and how you went for one role and you ended up getting another one. In the 15 years you've been acting, has there been a role that you auditioned for, didn't get, and that particular role went on to see a movie star emerge?
I don't think so. Unless you count Eastbound and Down. Which I don't know if that's a popular show here, but there's a character named Steve on that show, who's the actor is very funny, and he's perfect at the character.
So you cringed when you watched?
No, absolutely not, because he does it in such a different way. Like he brought such his own thing to that character that I was like, that guy's perfect for this part.
Is that the lackey?
Yeah, he's sort of he's Kenny Powers' like right-hand man basically, but he's a real special guy.
The movie about that fake movie at the end of the series.
Yeah.
They have a small civilian Superman to play the other guy and a disabled actor to play him. I mean, it was not politically correct, but it was hilarious. I thought it was a good show.
Yeah, he's a very good actor.
So the 80s mustache came up with, Halt and Catch Fire and Mr. Clarke. Are you afraid of being typecast as
a person who
the
has-
mustache?
as
We
a
need a
person
guy
who
with
has
a
a
mustache.
mustache.
Who's that guy in Stranger Things there? Call him that.
I'll take any part I can get, honestly. But no, I've actually like talked to I did a film last year where we're doing like hair and makeup tests, and I'm talking to the director, and he's going, oh, maybe we'll give this guy a mustache. And I just sort of like raised my hand. I'm like, it might take people out of the movie.
All right.
Because they might go, it's Mr. Clarke, which I don't want people to do that when they see me in other stuff. So I want to look different enough to where that maybe it's later on where they go like, that's the guy that plays Mr. Clarke. I want to kind of sneak up on him in that way. Yeah, right here.
What can you tell us about your role in Godzilla King of Monsters?
I cannot. I am strict orders on Godzilla. We can't talk about that until they're ready to release the information. But it's going to be a fun one. Right here with the burgundy sweater you had. You.
He actually asked my question.
Okay, great.
Where was Stranger Things filmed? Was it filmed in Los Angeles?
In Atlanta. In Atlanta and the suburbs around Atlanta. Yeah.
Just curious what commercials you were in.
I don't even like a lot.
My personal favorite as a fan of bacon on my show, that's on the bacon guy, is it Holiday Inn Express?
It's a Holiday Inn Express, yeah. Yeah, Lady Bacon.
Yeah, Lady Bacon.
Yeah.
What was your first job? Like acting?
I used to work in a video store. That was my first job.
Okay, if I was going to the Blockbuster where you worked or whatever it was, and I didn't know what films what's your 3 top films that you would recommend?
Oh man. So we're just role playing right now. So this is like today.
I can't decide. I sold my baby
Yeah.
machine. I got a VHS.
But
What would you recommend?
we're assuming that this is happening today.
Yeah, well.
Okay, because I can't go that far back in time and remember what my favorite movies
you
were
must
back
have had
then.
to do that, right? Recommend films.
Absolutely, yeah, all the time.
And you're a student of film, so
Yeah.
what films would
Yeah. So, well, a lot of times when you work at a place, like you look at the person and you go, what would they like that I also like? But so if I was just to go straight for A Quiet Place is really awesome. I know it's not on video yet, but we're being theoretical right now. So,
Classic film.
what's that?
It could even be classic.
Yeah, it could be classic films as well. Yeah. I'm just gonna pick my top. Yeah, just my top ones that I still think about. So, A Quiet Place is really great. That's one that's out right now. The Babadook is this, like, it's not old, but it's a classic in my mind. And It Follows is also like one that I just love. They all happen to be horror movies, so maybe I like horror
How
movies.
many nights can I rent that for?
Three nights.
Okay.
Yeah, 2 days. Yeah.
Do you have like a role on Stranger Things that like you're jealous of, like somebody else is playing a character? Like if you like shapeshift into like, you know, a kid.
Yeah, the Demogorgon. It's right up my alley. Yeah.
What's your favorite part about shooting, like the show?
What do you mean?
On the set, like your favorite part about the set?
I think actually when we are actually shooting, so like when the cameras are on and when it's time to act, and when we're like doing the scene and like sort of finding the fun energy of the scene, I think that's probably my favorite part. Yeah.
What was it like? Like, was the Demogorgon like a big like figure thing, or was it like
No, it wasn't CGI. It was all practical. He actually had the actor's a very talented guy, but he's also a performance guy, a performance artist, and he's known like throughout his career of like being able to do like these pretty incredible things with his body. And so when he was playing the Demogorgon, they had a prosthetic head. They had like a closed one. And then they had one that actually was animatronic, so it had a series of like wires and everything, and it was hooked up to controls that would open up. And I think the only thing CGI that they would do is his face underneath, to make it like just look like a throat.
Did you play the Stranger Things VR?
Yes. Yeah. I did not like that.
VR. It's really creepy.
Yeah, Flannel.
Yeah, whenever,
Is that your name, Flannel?
so whenever you're working with CGI that's like really small and characters, like is it strange to work with that because it's like it's not really there? And like I seen that like behind the scenes that they use the marble to get Dart running.
Yeah.
Like is that strange as an actor to just like watch a marble when you have to be
Well, so Mr. Clarke didn't have any scenes with Dart. The only scene that I do with Dart's inside the trap, and but I never see inside of it. So luckily, I could just use everything that's there. Now I have done other stuff with green screen where I'm having to imagine something that's not there, and that's just a part of an acting technique that I've learned and worked on, which is to build the room in your mind. And put it in front of you so that you, it's not that you're tricking your mind into thinking that you're seeing it, but you're seeing sort of a thing of your own creation, and reacting to it in that way. So, you know, it's a lot like going back to childhood, you know, when you're like, oh, and there's a giant thing over there and it's blah, blah, blah. And so it's a lot of that, but then like taking in the emotion of that moment as well. So what would it be like if, you know, if I saw this thing in front of me? Yeah.
You mentioned I need to reword that. You were working with Godzilla.
Yeah.
Did you happen to work with Anthony Ramos?
What's that?
Anthony Ramos, did you happen to work with him?
No.
How do you switch from Randy to Mr. Clarke or any character? Do you have, is there a method? Is it music? Do you just kind of take a moment and kind of switch in your mind? Like what's your process to get into character, whether it be Mr. Clarke or any? I don't know if it's universal or if it changes.
It would definitely change from character to character, depending on what I'm doing. So for Mr. Clarke, the wardrobe's important. The hair and the mustache is important. But once all of that stuff is in place, like, it's very easy to slip back into that character. And then also, because I like the people that I work with so much, it's easy for me to play that nurturing type character because they're my friends, because I want to take care of them. I want to make sure that that they're like happy and respected and everything. So so it's easy to transfer my own personal feelings into the character of Mr. Clarke, to do that. You know, if I'm working on something else, like the film that I just wrapped, my character shows no emotion, which is a challenge of its own, to where I had to go like, okay, how do I not smile ever? And you know, what I ended up doing for that character was just completely relaxing the muscles in my face and making sure that, you know, doing an acting technique before we started where, you know, I would feel, you know, just sort of go through like a full body scan to go like, where is there tension in my body? And just drawing attention to that tension and letting it release on its own. And then constantly feeling my face, like with, you know, like just sort of feeling the feelings in my face to go, where's there tension? And releasing that tension so that my emotion never showed through. And so it was all happening sort of behind my eyes and not in the expression on my face. Yeah.
Is your character in Godzilla the most challenging character you've ever had to play?
No. I'm not sure what the most challenging character I've ever had to play is, honestly. They all have their own challenges, so I don't. But that's not a particularly challenging character. Again, like if you're working on a good set, they make it easy for you to like play the characters. And I've been very fortunate in that I've never been on a set where I found it difficult. But there are definitely sets where it's like, oh yeah, no, this set is like completely conducive to play this character. Like everything I need to play this character is here, even if there's some stuff that's not here because it has to be created digitally later on. There's enough stuff there that I can sort of like link myself to create this, not only this character, but this character living in this moment.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I also noticed that Millie Bobby Brown is slated to appear in the same movie, so I'm wondering what happened there. Did somebody like do you a favor? Did you just get like, no, I know this other actress and she's great?
Okay, well, first off, every role I get is from my hard work. No one did me a favor. The director is a fan of Stranger Things, and you know, like, and obviously I had a very good audition because I'm very good at what I do. Yeah.
As a radio guy, I love, and a child of the 70s, 80s, I'm old, so I love the music in the show. I love the fact that it's set in the 80s. As a matter of fact, there's a segment of my show in the morning called the Turn Up Tune, and when I'm binge watching Stranger Things, typically something from the show. In season 2, when the older brother is working out, he's playing Rats Round and Round, so that we don't play Rat a lot.
Yeah.
So I played it in the morning. Does the cat, is that ever discussed either at the table read to kind of set scene, to talk about the music? Because I think that's very critical in all movies, right? The right songs.
Yeah.
Do you guys have any input in that at all?
No, I don't think they. I think that's one thing for sure, that you know, there's a music supervisor on the show, and of course the Duffer Brothers are the beginning and end of all decisions. But no, I don't think they ask the actors like, what's a song that you'd be into?
Well, the kids probably, they wouldn't be able. They don't know any of the music, right?
Exactly. So it's going to be hard for them to connect to some of the deep cuts that you find in the seasons. So yeah, that's an idea that's for the creators to decide, and then usually by the time that you're on set, it's been decided what it's going to be.
So you know this stuff?
What?
When you're shooting, you already know, or is that important
Yeah,
at all?
some of the stuff is in some of the songs are in the script, and then some they'll go like, well, just gonna play a snippet of this song to get to, let you feel what the mood of this thing is.
Cool.
So in Mr. Clarke's house, like he has classical music playing, obviously because he likes classical music, which I do not. So just have to get into that sort of mindset. Yeah.
Watching the show as a fan, who's your favorite character? Aside from you.
Aside from me, thank you very much for that caveat, because obviously I'm my own favorite character. I don't know. It's such a hard thing to decide, and it changes and it shifts. Like it obviously, like Dustin is like an all-time favorite, but then you've got the stuff that Will's doing in season 2, where there's so many levels to what he's playing, because he's not just playing Will, he's playing the Mind Flayer as well, and playing the conflict that's happening as well. So there's something really cool and really interesting about that. Yeah, it changes, it shifts. I think probably everybody has had their moments, and who doesn't love 11? So it's hard to pick an all-time favorite, but they're there for sure. Yeah.
Did you move anywhere to like pursue acting? Like, did you like move to Atlanta or?
I did not. I've lived in Atlanta my whole life, which is, I just sort of like synchronously was able to live in a city that got a lot of production that moved in. Like basically, shortly after I started acting, they started building film and TV studios. So I got really lucky. Yeah.
The art, I grew up the same time as this gentleman here in the 70s and 80s, so and I've watched a lot of stuff, because it seems to be trendy now, shows that take place in the 80s and 90s, and the art department and the set design is really good.
Yeah.
On Stranger Things, it looks really authentic art. Are you ever allowed to play with any of the stuff, the games and things on the shelves, or were you able to take any souvenirs home?
I do not take any souvenirs home. I wish I'd taken a paper plate from season 1. I regretted that, I think, the next day. I was like, I really should have stole one of those. But, they kind of use that for the archives and stuff, because some of that stuff may come back later. So a lot of it is like precious once it's used on set, because it may get used again. So I don't play with a lot of this stuff. I do get a chance to go into the set before we start filming to familiarize myself with it. But I don't want to touch and mess with too much stuff. I don't want to break something before we start. And obviously, like Mr. Clarke's most used set is the science classroom. So there's a lot of cool, like, science-y stuff in there that's fun to play around with and look, and stuff that you'll never see in the show because it's going to be blurry and in the background. But there's a lot of attention to detail paid to the classroom and to every one of the sets.
Now, when they didn't know it was going to be renewed after season 1, were the sets all struck, or do they store them between the seasons? Like the ones that, or I guess on the soundstage would be that way, but the ones.
Yeah. So the soundstage ones, they have to get struck because there's going to be a new.
They destroy them, or have
that would be a production question. I'm not sure what they would do, but there's not a lot of like the more set type stuff that we come back to, because you'll notice like it's a lot of location shooting. So luckily those houses will still be there the next year. And then the set stuff is some of the more specialized stuff. A lot of the CGI type stuff is going to take place on a sound stage. So yeah, most of that stuff is going to be struck, and then if it needs to be recreated the next season, well, that's why we have a budget.
They're pros.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you play a role on Walking Dead, different show, what would you play a character as? Like the brainy one or the yeah.
Sorry.
For Walking Dead character.
Yeah. If I was on Walking Dead.
Yeah. What would you like to be as?
Oh, like what type of character would I want to play? I would definitely want to play a bad guy.
A bad guy?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't get enough of that in my career, so I'd like to get some of that in there. And Walking Dead has some of the best bad guys, so yeah, I'd love to get in on that action. But obviously, I wouldn't turn down any role on Walking Dead because I love that show.
Question.
Yeah.
Oh, do you think the Barb is ever gonna come back?
No. No, Barb's dead. Barb's dead. Get over it. The last time we saw her, there was a giant eel coming out of her mouth. She's not coming back. She's been in the Upside Down for far too long. Will survived though, but Will was alive. Will didn't have a snake coming out of his mouth. He coughed up like a little baby slug. Barb's had a little more time to gestate, unfortunately.
You've got a question right here.
Yeah.
To go with that one, will they actually ever find out officially what happened?
I mean, they see, like, they do see her, and they do see her in the Upside Down. They see her corpse, and there's like a giant version of the slug that Will coughs up that is coming out of her mouth. So she's definitely dead, and I think we know that it's because that slug ate her from the inside. Yes.
How do you feel about the hashtag Justice for Barb and all those Twitter hashtags?
I love it. I think it's great. I mean, like, you know what it means for me as a person that's involved in the production of a show is that people are passionate about this show, and like, you gotta love that, because passionate fans are the best. Like, that's the reason. Like, you guys are the reason that the show is successful, because you watched it, you loved it, and you told your friends about it, or your friends told you about it, and then you watched it and you loved it, and you told more friends about it, or you told your family about it, you told your parents about it, or your parents told their parents about it. That's the reason that the show became a success. It wasn't because of a massive advertising campaign, because there wasn't one. This was a completely word of mouth hit, and it was like only because of the people that were watching the show. And like, if you watched like I watched on social media, like, it grew and it grew and it grew over 2 or 3 months, and it just kept, got like pervasive. Like, it went from being like a show that people talked about online to a show that everyone was talking about online, which is insane. And it's only because of the way that the audiences responded. Yeah.
When you like first started, like when you got the script and all that, did you kind of have, I don't know what point you started realizing like this could catch on? Like, was there like seeing the set, or was it seeing like when did you find out like this is like a hit, or like?
It wasn't until it came out. It wasn't. I mean, like, Stephen King tweeted about it before it came out. I was like, that's kind of a big deal. And then, just going on Twitter and like doing a search for Stranger Things, like, after it came out, was just like, oh my God, like, there are, a million tweets about this. Like, everyone is talking about this show. And not just everyone's talking about it, everyone loves it, which is crazy. There's like, I think I only ever saw like one person who didn't like it. And I was like, well, that guy doesn't know what fun is. He's allergic to fun, and that's why he doesn't like the show.
I guess that could lead into the next question. In this day and age with social media, as an actor on shows or movies that you're in, how much do you pay attention to Twitter, Facebook, online reviews? I don't know if you ever go on Reddit or some of those other sites where they have really in-depth discussions about some of the projects you're on.
Yeah, absolutely. I go to those things. I mean, not Facebook. Who uses Facebook anymore? But
Guess I'm old. Does that make me old?
No, that makes you willing to give up your life to Mark Zuckerberg and the Russians. Reddit's awesome because there are some really, really in-depth conversations, and it's interesting because I'll go into the the Stranger Things subreddit, and they'll talk about stuff about my character that I'm like, wow, like, and like that they're right. That they'll like make a call that's right about my character, about some sort of motivation, but I'll never go in there and say. But it's funny how I'll see somebody, I'm like, that's exactly right. That's exactly what I was thinking at this moment. as an actor just to prepare for this, and then you'll have people like call them out underneath there, and they go like, no way, it's not like this, it's like this other thing, and I'm like, no, actually this guy's right, so maybe I should go onto Reddit and go like, actually I play this character and he's right. That'd be some validation for those people.
So how do you know about the whole like show rivals like Riverdale and Stranger Things? How half of like their dynamics in Stranger Things? How do you feel about that?
I'm sorry, what is it? So there's
Like,
the Riverdale fans and the Stranger Things fans are fighting?
Don't like each other. How do you feel about that?
Does anybody watch Riverdale? I'm kidding. I love Riverdale. I actually worked on a play that the creator of Riverdale wrote a while ago. This is almost 15 years ago. That he wrote a play version of Riverdale. He wrote an Archie-based play that was like an adult version of the Archie comics, and we got a cease and desist the day before we opened from Archie Comics that said, you can't use these characters in your show. So we had to change the names of the show. We had to change the names of the characters, and had to change some of the costumes so that we didn't infringe on their copyright. And
Did they allow Riverdale, like the show Riverdale?
so what happened eventually is that the guy who wrote that play, Roberto, he started writing comic books. And through his connections in comic books, he started talking to the Archie people, and they approved a rebranding. And so it was a collaboration. So he had to work with them in order to do the Riverdale show. But this is 15 years after his initial idea. So sometimes it takes a long time for your dreams to come to fruition. And I don't think anybody should fight because one person likes one show and one person likes another. You can actually like the same show or like the same shows, and it's okay. Like, shows actually don't compete with each other anymore, especially since you can watch Stranger Things anytime you want. So it's fine. I don't think people should fight about shows. I don't think one's better than, well, I do think Stranger Things is the better show, but yeah, I don't think people should fight over fandom. I think fandom's something to be appreciated and enjoyed. Yep.
Yeah, who did you voice on Archer, and was it kind of cool, like, working with H. Jump Benjamin?
So I voiced a character named Mr. Rompers, who was sort of a clown with some anger issues, who was doing a heist at a dinner party. He was trying to steal this very valuable necklace. So the thing about working on an animated series is you don't actually work with the other actors in that show. So I sit in a sound booth all by myself, and I do all of that part I do it alone. There are directors and producers in the other room, and they'll communicate with me over my headphones and ask me to I'll basically do a variation. I'll just riff on each line, and do it a bunch of different ways, and then they pick the one that they like best and they edit that into the show. And so when you hear two people talking to each other in the show, those two people aren't actually talking to each other. They're alone saying the lines, and it's actually the people that are editing, that are sound editing the show and animating the show, that make it seem like it's actually people that are together and talking. Yeah.
What would the do if one of the characters got braces or something that had to change?
If some character had to change in the show, what would they do about that?
Yeah.
Well, like Dustin got teeth in season 2.
Yeah.
So they just make a comment about it. He goes, "Check out my chompers." It's that easy. All they can, because each season thus far, it's been a year jump. So it's easy to say, oh yeah, this character got a haircut since last season, or this character got braces, or now Eleven's hair is longer, stuff like that. Did you have I saw your hand, did your hand go up?
Yeah.
What's the most absurd fan theory that I ever read? That Mr. Clarke was evil. That Mr. Clarke was secretly evil and working for the. What's that?
They have reasoning
Yeah, because they're dumb. Mr. Clarke's not evil. He's like the sweetest guy ever. Yeah.
Who's the youngest person on the set? Like the youngest actor?
I think the girl that played Holly, I think she was 3 or 4 in the first season.
So we'll do. It's 3 o'clock, but we'll just do one more question here.
Yeah,
and then
well, I mean, these guys have asked a lot of questions. So if there's anybody that has a question that isn't these guys, I want to get to that first. Yeah.
Why did they use Eggos as 11's favorite?
Why did they use Eggos as 11 favorite food? I'm not sure. I think they wanted to pick an iconic 80s food, something that you could recognize. I don't know if it was actually her favorite food, but it was something that she saw that she could identify in, that Mike brought her to eat. And so if you'll notice, like when she's eating it in like the woods or whatever, she's not even like, she doesn't have electricity, so she can't like cook it. So she can't toast it or anything, so she's just eating it raw, which is pretty disgusting, actually. All right, nobody else, so we'll go back to you, our honorary MC.
So when you think about Billy, like some people say that they like sympathize with him, or others say that they hate him.
Yeah.
I personally like him.
Yeah, you're weird. Billy's really mean, and he's not a nice person. And obviously, he's got his challenges in life. We see that, that the reason that he is the way that he is because he comes from such a troubled background. So you have some sympathy for him, but also Max is obviously clearly in that same environment, and she's actually a cool person. So I think Billy's kind of a jerk.
How about a big round of applause
so right here,
for
hang on.
Randy, everybody?
Thank you.
Another one?
Yeah, right here. Go ahead.
Now that you're reaching a nice level of stardom there, if there's any celebrities that you still get starstruck over,
Yeah, all the time.
who are some of your that you'd like to meet?
Oh, that I'd like to meet? There's so many that I'd like to meet. But like just the fact that I get to work with people that I'm a fan of their work is cool to me. I think working with people is cooler to me than meeting someone, because when you work with someone, you get to see how they work, and like that's really what I find is most awesome about the people that I work with, because I'm like, wow, they're a really good actor, and if I really enjoy their work and I get to like watch them and see how it is that they create their characters and see how it is that they do their stuff on set, it makes it it's like stuff that I'm going to steal. I'm going to go like, oh, that's a great preparation technique. I'm going to take that. I'm going to use that later. So it's really inspirational to be able to work with the people that I'm fans of. All right, so that's it. Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
All right, thank you, guys.
Randy.